You have a wish to start your family based in your truth. And you're wondering how you can do it differently since you haven't seen anything differently growing up. I am Chani Twersky, a mother of 8. And in the last 15 plus years as a parenting coach, I have impacted thousands of people in helping them shift in how they build their family. You don't need necessarily to fall into that trap of the generational trauma that was passed down to you. There is a way for you to remove yourself from that chain of pain and do something differently, even though you didn't learn it from your parents. And the question is how? Awareness is gold. And of course you're going to say, duh. Of course awareness is important. So let me share with you some additional thoughts. I learned this over the span of many years and many years ago from one of my very big influencers, Pia Melody. She's been one of my great teachers in learning about childhood development and childhood dysfunction. One of the things that impacted me in my own journey in healing my inner child and working with other people in healing their inner child is what she calls normalizing dysfunction. And a lot of the problem that we notice everywhere we go, everywhere we look, we notice that there's a lot of family dysfunction. And why do we see that all over? And the reason that she explains is that we accepted some things as normal. And when a child accepts certain things as normal, will they change it? Think about it. So if something is normalized, I'll give you some examples. One example is verbal abuse or tonality, or maybe even put down or shaming. And it's unfortunately been accepted as normal, but it's not conducive to health in a child. And if we adults as a society normalize this, how much capacity will there be for us to be aware that these are patterns that we need to change? When children grow up having their basic needs met, like food and shelter and a warm bed, but they don't have a present, emotionally present parent, they might normalize it and they might repeat that pattern with their children. Chances are that their own parents grew up like that and their parents grew up like that, and it became the norm. But that does not make it functional. Normalizing doesn't mean functional. And that's a real pitfall in propelling healing and transformation when it comes to family functionality. What are patterns that you grew up with that you might realize after hearing this that, oh, I normalized this, and after hearing this, I'm thinking, I don't think it was functional. Please share below so we can all have this collective conversation and create collective change for our future generations. I acknowledge you doing your work, you being here and being part of the change. So that is one understanding of how generational patterns float from one generation to the other and get passed down until there is somebody who takes the stake and puts it in the ground and creates the change in that pattern. And it takes recognizing that they don't want to repeat that with their children. It takes recognizing that you don't want to repeat whatever you grew up with, that you didn't like. Trusting your cues, your inner cues, even your inner child cues, even your childhood cues of what felt right or what didn't feel right, even if it was subtle. Children are so sensitive to truth. Children are so receptive to what is really conducive to their health or not. And unfortunately, as a defense mechanism, we can sometimes turn that into silence, silencing our own cues, because we feel powerless to change what is repetitive and dysfunctional and painful. So therefore, I understand that if a person is unaware of their parents' mistakes, it will be inevitable that they will repeat the mistakes, and that's sad. There is no judgment, there is no blame, there's just understanding the concepts so you can assess for yourself, so you can inquire, so you can discover and find a way to bring that clarity to the forefront, whether it's going to, I always think about finding a private place in nature where you can speak and hear your voice and let all your experiences come forth and be witness to it. Or maybe taking a journal and having the practice of writing down things that come up for you, whatever form works for you to bring more awareness into your life. I'm inviting you to explore this. And I am sure I can still do my own exploration to polish and refine the work that I already have done up until now. Do you want to hear when I had my first glimmer of awareness? I was 17. I remember it clear as day. This goes back a couple of decades. My youngest child is 17 now, but I was a high school student at the time. And it was credit to my high school curriculum and staff and leadership that provided a beautiful curriculum to us. What I remember in particular was this teacher. She was pretty elder, wise elder, petite, like a grandma type of teacher. But her wisdom was emanating from her, and I loved her. Her subject was psychology. And of course, in high school, we don't delve deep into the whole 9 yards of psychology, but we did learn the ABC of psychology, the basics and the fundamentals. As a young girl, I didn't understand that I have a leaning towards psychology, philosophy. I always knew I loved to learn, but now looking back, I can see that I always had a special interest in psychology and theories and personal growth, and I loved learning for practicality. I loved applying anything I learned in school. So learning psychology was a glimmer of awareness for me, because when I started to learn the principles of psychology, it had me question if that was my experience in being the recipient of how I grew up. Of course, it came clear to me that it was not. It was sadly clear to me, but I wasn't sad. I was more hopeful, because I was already 17, and in my culture, how my life turned out to be, I was already arranged to marry someone. I was already engaged, which means I was more headed towards having children of my own. So I was hopeful with the deep commitment to making things different for my own children. And I'm grateful for that, because that awareness, that glimmer of awareness later expanded into me becoming the parent that I always sought to be. Facing the tiger. That's the second thing. Now, once you pass that bridge of awareness, you face the tiger. And the tiger is the pain that comes along with facing the truth. Now, once we skip over the awareness barrier, we realize, no, this was not normal. We reach the next barrier, which is pain and fear. Once we are aware of dysfunction that we grew up with, it is normal to face increased fear of repeating those patterns, because we can think, oh my God, this really is bad. And now that I recognize that this is highly dysfunctional, we can face the next thing, which is the fear of repeating those patterns. I like to call it facing the tiger, because we have sometimes an enormous amount of emotion connected to those dysfunctions. There's an enormous amount of emotion connected to the wounding that goes along with the dysfunction. So it's not just an intellectual or a logical understanding and awareness, a cognitive awareness of your parents' dysfunction, but there's also the emotion. Because lack of awareness can come from normalizing dysfunction, which can often come from a state of denial. Denial is a very cozy cover-up for pain. Pretending it doesn't happen, pretending it doesn't exist, or minimizing, pretending it's not so bad. And once we go into denial, we numb up our pain. So if we move away from denial, we move into awareness, we face the tiger, we face the pain. And sometimes that pain can be intense. The way you can overcome that is creating a relationship with your inner child. And I know there is a theory from Dr. Sarno. I remember studying his work 30 years ago. And he talks about physical pain being more comfortable for a person than emotional pain. And his explanation is that the emotional pain is repressed subconsciously. And when your emotional pain is sitting in that denial place, right? It's subconscious, it's not in the consciousness. And the consciousness is where you're aware of what's been happening, or of how you feel, or how you felt, or of the reality. Denying the pain or the reality keeps things under the consciousness or subconscious. And in his explanation, pain that is hidden or stored in your subconscious is intolerably more painful than pain that is out in the light in your conscious awareness. And that bridge between the two, between it being hidden in the subconscious, when it festers there, the pain intensifies. And that's why it can feel so scary, like a tiger, to come close to the pain. But what people don't realize is that when you come close to the pain, you're bringing the pain out into the consciousness. And in the work that we do is we create a relationship between your present self, your conscious self, and your inner family, your inner children. And I want to add something to what Dr. Sarno calls the subconscious and why the pain is so intense. What I want to add is what I learned from one of my mentors, Barry Green, is that our subconscious is our inner child, and all of those memories are stored in the subconscious. So in other words, according to that theory, our subconscious really is our inner child. And what I have come to evolve from that theory is understanding how there is an alive being who is still alive in you, who was a child once. So you have a whole inner family that is your inner children who are alive. And I want to share with you something that I think would be important for you to realize about combining what Dr. Sarno says about the subconscious being intolerably more painful than the conscious, and what Barry says that the subconscious is our inner child. And how I understand it is this: children are incomparably more vulnerable than adults. Pain for a child is incomparable to our level of pain. I'll give you an example. When a child is abandoned, the child's pain can equal to fear of death. And it's legitimate because the child is dependent for survival on their caretakers, as opposed to you experiencing breakup with a partner and you're feeling abandoned. Now, if you're feeling excruciating pain, that pain is not your present self. It's your younger versions of yourself that get kicked up because they were abandoned. So sometimes a person experiences breakup and they think it's the worst thing that happened. It's not. You're an adult. You can't be abandoned by a person. Yes, you loved a person and the person betrayed you. It hurts, but it's not comparable to the kind of pain you feel when you're a child. So when I talk about facing the tiger as the process of breaking the cycle of generational trauma, is really bridging the two, your present self, embracing that inner child, creating the safety for that inner child, becoming the person who will not abandon your inner child. And that is possible. But you have to allow yourself to face the pain and not be afraid of the excruciating pain that you felt when you were a child. Who then should care for them if not you? So the real question becomes, how courageous are you to face the tiger, to face that deep, intense pain that you experienced as a child and maybe numbed out or denied or normalized some of it, or maybe you're ready to go and allow them to come out and cry and be held by you and be soothed by you. And that's the healing that happens through you. You know, there's a saying, the way to is through. Allowing yourself to get through to your inner children, to empathize with them, to feel them in a way that they feel that you feel them, to see them in a way that they see that you see them. And in that way, transmuting the things that you experienced as a child into healing. That's the second step. And that's what I've been doing in the last 20 plus years. One specific story that comes up for me all the time is when I was 4 and I am standing in the kitchen in our Brooklyn, New York, dim apartment, and I watch my mom from the corner. She doesn't see that. I see her. I watch her facial expression, every crease on her face, especially around her eyes, as she smiles and praises my younger sister. I was 4, my younger sister was 2. And she specifically praised the color of her hair. She called it white. And I knew my hair was brown. And I remember my feelings. My heart, my little heart of that 4-year-old girl shriveled like a raisin, like a beautiful grape that's drying up, because I didn't have blonde hair. I didn't deserve my mom's attention. And it took a lot of healing for me to transmute that into becoming an attentive parent myself. We can transmute our inner child pain into something valuable, into becoming the kind of parent that changes generational patterns. And that's why you're here. And I want to acknowledge that. We're all doing this together. Our future generations happens because of people like you. You too can take everything you experienced as a child and do the same. Transmute that into becoming the amazing, most truest you as a parent. And that brings me to healed wisdom. That's the third step. And if you'd like to create the family of your dreams even faster, I've created a special quiz for you that you can go through, and you can find it in the descriptions below. Healed wisdom. It's common for somebody who has experienced something painful as a child or something dysfunctional to seek to go in the extreme opposite direction rather than a balanced, functional parenting journey. Opposite does not mean functional. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make when they experience childhood dysfunction. And that's why what I'm inviting you to consider is to tap into your healed wisdom. And what I mean by healed wisdom is that I believe that you are already equipped as a future parent, or if you're watching this and you're already a parent, as a parent, you are equipped to parent your child completely functionally. You are embedded with the wisdom you need to be a functional parent. So why aren't all parents functional? And that's a good question. And the very common question is, how can I know something that I never learned? Not by modeling, not by how I was treated. And the answer is this: you have innate wisdom. Your innate wisdom is an energy that circles within you and around you all the time. You have wisdom. You have access to your higher wisdom that is soaked and enriched with your truth. And when I say that, that might resonate. You might even nod as I'm saying it, like, I know, you're right, honey. I can feel that I have access to that wisdom, but sometimes I lose access. And that is oftentimes the problem. And why is that the problem? And how does that happen, that we lose access to that higher wisdom? And the answer is that when we don't go through the healing, the proper healing for our inner child, we are hijacked by the residue of the pain that you grew up with. And that blocks your higher wisdom. So of course, the prerequisite for you coming to your ultimate functional parental self is to go through a true healing, is to go through a healing where your inner family, your inner child, your inner children, your subconscious, as the scientific people would call it, but I call it you, the inner child you, who's still in pain. If they're still in pain, they will need your attention, and they will fog that wisdom into reactivity, reacting to what happened to them when you were young. As we said earlier, when that pain is stored, we don't have access to it. We are in denial when we numb out, or we normalize, or we minimize. The pain is then still hidden in your storage room, let's call it, of your, wherever your, however your inner children have decided to hide. You know, imagine you being a child and literally hiding, but being that you couldn't hide physically, you hid and shriveled and shrunk on an energetic level. So it's incumbent on every parent or on every person who wants to start a family to go through that inner healing with your inner child. Create calm, inner harmony, inner peace, soothing. Create a new experience for your inner family in which they don't have a grip over you. And that's why I call it healed wisdom, because when you are healed, you have access to all the wisdom you need as a parent, and that's the good news. So hopefully this is a clear 3-step process that you can take and become confident that you can stop generational trauma, dysfunction, patterns, and create the family that is reflective of your truth and your deepest desire for your child. I started therapy when I was already a mother of 5 of my 8 children. The reason being that I felt stuck in a marriage that I wasn't happy. If you know, grew up in a culture where my marriage was arranged for us and I was very young and I was unhappy in the marriage. And that's when I sought therapy and I started my healing journey. However, what I didn't notice was that healing journey will really transform how I parent my children. I already was a parent, but how I am today compared to how I was when I started my parenting journey, as much as my intentions were really lofty when I was a 17-year-old, and remember that story, me being in high school, I had very good ideas of how I want to parent. But the healing took me to that place. It took my intentions and actualized it. And that's what I want for you, and that's what I wish and bless you to go through. And my parenting right now comes from healed wisdom that gets revealed once you do the healing. When we parent with higher wisdom, with healed wisdom, our parenting feels okay. Our parenting feels right. We don't need to be, as parents, ridden with guilt or shame. This is a collective journey for all of us to come together and usher in a new generation of healthy babies, healthy children, healthy toddlers, the kind of childhood that you and I have dreamt to grow up with. But you can do that, and you can give that to your child. So once again, the first step is becoming aware of the dysfunctional patterns. The process of awareness is golden. And moving into facing the tiger, facing the pain. Facing the pain, surprisingly, makes it less painful, not more painful. People are afraid to face the pain because they think it's going to be as painful as it is in the subconscious, but that's not true. When you bring it into the consciousness, into the light, the pain dissipates. And I know if you've done some healing, you understand this. Because pain is only intensified and amplified in the dark. And of course, the third thing is reaching wisdom that will come from healing, not from more analysis, from more information, and more learning. It comes from creating that deep relationship with your inner family, where your inner family can finally rest on your laps and know that you've got their back. They feel safe in your arms, in your sphere. And you will suddenly access that hidden wisdom that's already residing inside of you, ready to be revealed once you healed. Once again, if you'd like a gentle next step, I have created a special quiz for you that you can grab in the descriptions below. I look forward to seeing you in our next video. If you like community, I would like to offer an invitation to you to join our exclusive school community called Future Parents Collective. You can connect to other future parents who go through the same process as you, who are proactive. You want to prepare, you want to take the guessing work out of the equation, and really have the support, as I like to call it, create a family while you are building your own family. If that feels supportive to you, you are more than welcome to join me. I look forward to seeing you on the